Hello, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and today we're going to be checking out the Logitech G Cloud, a handheld gaming console that came out in the States ruddy months ago and has finally managed to stumble its way across the Atlantic to Blighty with a price tag of 329 quids. Unlike the Steam Deck, the Asus ROG Ally, the other 24 handheld gaming consoles that I've reviewed recently, the Logitech G Cloud does not pack ridiculous portable power to play the latest AAA titles. Instead, it's an Android device powered by a basic Qualcomm chipset, and it relies instead on cloud gaming smarts to run the likes of Forza 5. So going to whip the Logitech G Cloud out of the box, give it a bloody good testing. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Alright, so first up, what do you get in the box? Well, first up, of course, you get one Logitech G Cloud. And the only other thing in here is a dinky box. And inside of there, you've got one power adapter, a USB Type-C cable, and a setup guide, which basically says plug it in and turn the bugger on. If you couldn't even figure that out, you probably shouldn't be using technology. And that's everything you get bundled in the box with the Logitech G Cloud, very straightforward. So let us begin with the design, and there's no denying the Logitech G Cloud is considerably more compact and lightweight than many of its rivals like the Steam Deck, the ROG Ally, the Aya Neo 2. For comparison purposes, here is the Steam Deck, a supposedly portable games console, which is so bloody massive you could actually use it to club a grizzly bear to death. Not that I'm saying you should do that before I get cancelled. And yeah, this thing's got a good couple of inches at least on the Logitech G Cloud. We're certainly talking more sort of Switch OLED style levels here, though it's a bit girthier than the old Switch. And the G Cloud weighs just under half a kilo as well, so very comfortable to clutch and to game on for hours at a time. I'm not dropping it into my lap after just 20 minutes like the friggin' Steam Deck, because my biceps are burning. I gotta admit, I really like Logitech's design here. It's nice and clean and simple and smart. No particularly ugly seams or visible screws or anything. You got some nice wee touches like the little splash of colour for this button here, and of course just underneath the thumbsticks there. There is no RGB LED action, unfortunately, unlike the ROG Ally and the Yanios. Quite a few of the handheld gamers. You know what, that's fine, that'll probably extend the battery life a wee bit, if nothing else. As far as the ports go, well, pretty straightforward stuff. Down below you've got your USB-C charging port, also a headphone jack. And then up top on the G Cloud we've got the slider power button, we've also got a volume rocker, and we've also got ourselves a slot for micro SD memory cards to expand the storage. And if you do tend to get a bit moist during your gaming sessions, you'll probably appreciate the grippy handheld bits that keep the Logitech G Cloud from sliding around too much. Now, unfortunately, when you do turn on the Logitech G Cloud, there is no fingerprint sensor and there's no camera for face unlock, so you will have to enter a pin every ruddy time. And then boom, you're into your desktops. And this is the first handheld gaming device I've reviewed in ages that is actually running Android rather than Windows or Linux or some other OS. And you're possibly wondering, is it the latest, freshest Android 13? To which I say, no! No, the Logitech G Cloud is actually running Android version 11. Thankfully, the security updates are a bit more recent than the Android version. March 2023, so not too far behind, although I'm not sure for how many years this bad boy will be supported with security updates. It's not your traditional Android UI either. This is what is known as the handheld mode. You do have full touchscreen controls as you would expect, but you can also use the thumbsticks to jump about the place, navigate through all the various menus and select an app or a game to play. The interface is really intuitive, no real complaints here. Your most recently used apps pop up here on the main desktop. You've also got an apps tray of sorts where you can grab anything else. You got a folder with all your googly goodness down here at the bottom. You could also create more folders and move stuff around a bit. Up at the top here, you've got a messages section, which is where your notifications will pop up, and also any announcements or tips that Logitech might eventually get around to doing. You've also got a gallery for all of your screenshots, and then if we dive into settings, lots of stuff you can piddle about with in here, including changing up the themes and the wallpapers. Small selection of Logitech official efforts here, but as you can see in handheld mode, it's all kind of blurred out anyway. And as always, of course, I've got to swap that out for a geeky anime effort, not that you can really see it. You can also remap the controls if you want. So any button can be replaced with another button if you want to mix things up a bit. You can also tweak the joystick sensitivity, and you do have dead zone settings as well. And then if you scroll down to the very bottom of the settings menu, you do have a more traditional Android settings, just like you would on an Android smartphone. Now, as the Logitech G Cloud is a cloud gaming device first and foremost, don't exactly expect buckets of storage on this thing. Just 64 gigs in total to be exact, of which I've used about 80% already, although a good chunk of that is just from downloading Genshin Impact. Although yeah, at least you do have that micro SD memory card support, so you can give it a boost if you need to. However, the Logitech G Cloud has no SIM support, so there's no 5G gaming fun times for you. It's Wi-Fi only. And this thing maxes out at Wi-Fi 5 as well. There's no 6 or 6E support because of the choice of chipset. So yeah, no 5G, no Wi-Fi 6 support, which already puts it on the back foot compared with most smartphones as far as cloud gaming goes. Okay, so first off, before we dive into the cloud gaming, let's get a wee bit of Android gaming on the go. And as you can see, forget about multitasking, it's all about one app at a time. Now when you jump into a game, you can bring up the gaming menu by long pressing the home button here on the right edge. This is nowhere near as in-depth as what you'll find on the likes of the ROG Ally, the Ayaneo 2, etc. Just allows you to tweak the brightness, the volume, the sound effects. The only true dedicated gaming features are down here at the bottom, screen recording and the key mapping. It'll be very handy for these Android titles, because playing the likes of Genshin with touchscreen controls on this thing would frankly be ridiculous. This is pretty straightforward stuff. Just drag these little on-screen icons to whatever you want the various buttons and thumbsticks to control. So for instance, we can have A, B, attack, B can be secondary attack, X can be the power-up. You can also bring the left and right triggers into play. By default, all of these buttons are disabled, so you'll have to enable the ones you actually want to use. And then with that done, as you can see, we can now control Genshin using all of the on-screen buttons. Unfortunately, there is a reason that this key mapping feature is still in beta, and that's because it doesn't really bloody work. Quite often the physical controls would simply just stop responding for no reason for a couple of seconds. This especially was true if I had to use the touchscreen controls for anything. So even though, yes, I do suck pretty bad at Genshin Impact, this is actually making me look even worse than usual. Now, powering the Logitech G Cloud is Qualcomm's Snapdragon 720G chipset, which is a couple of years old now, so positively geriatric as far as mobile processors go. The last device I remember seeing that stuffed inside was Samsung's Galaxy A52, and that was back in 2021 when we were still balls deep in COVID territory. So perhaps unsurprisingly, the likes of Genshin Impact and more intensive Android titles don't exactly run super smoothly. I kept Genshin on the low graphic settings, and even then it was a bit of a juddery mess, especially when things got a bit violent. So if you are looking for a handheld device to play Android titles on, you're gonna have to restrict yourself to some pretty basic stuff here. But of course the Logitech G Cloud was primarily designed for cloud gaming. So let's test that out by diving into the Xbox Cloud Gaming app. Now the way this operates is very similar to the Xbox Game Pass service, except the difference is that all of the games are played on a remote server rather than on the actual device you're gaming on. You've got an absolutely fantastic selection here, including lots of day one games that you won't be able to find on other platforms. And what I really love about this service is the sheer variety of titles. You've got everything from bizarre indie adventure games to the most popular action, smashy, shooty, crashy titles. And yes, even the likes of Goat Simulator. It's even a proper nostalgia fest, like Blink's the Time Sweeper, for goodness sakes. So whatever your particular desires are, they will be sated by this service. And I've got to say, it is rather lovely being able to just select a game and then play it, rather than select a game and then sit around for about 5 hours while the pissing thing downloads and updates. And while I was testing out the Logitech G Cloud, I sampled quite an eclectic selection of games. I found the streaming performance was absolutely fine. Didn't notice any drops in the frame rate or the graphical quality while I was gaming just over my home Wi-Fi. And while there is undeniably some very slight input lag, it certainly didn't trouble me when I was just playing simple single-played fare, even quite fast-paced high-reaction stuff like Forza. Obviously this thing is not designed to play competitive online shooters or anything like that, but otherwise no issues. And as you'd expect from Logitech, the controls themselves are comfortable to use, they're responsive, and absolutely no issues there at all. The thumbsticks are suitably springy, the buttons don't stick or anything. I mean, yeah, Logitech knows how to make a controller. As for what you'll spend all your time staring at, well, you've got a 7-inch IPS display on this thing, similar to the Steam Deck. Although, unlike the Steam Deck, it is a full HD resolution panel, same as the ROG Ally, the Ayaneo 2, etc. And I found it was perfectly good. Even though it's not OLED tech, you get reasonably poppy colours and pretty sharp contrast. And sure, you don't get those inky, gorgeous blacks of the Switch OLED, but hey ho. The viewing angles are nice and wide as well, and the good news is the brightness levels top off at around 450 nits. You can actually do some gaming outdoors with this thing, as long as you're not playing anything too murky. The likes of Atomic Heart, I frankly could not see what the was going on once you went underground. Whereas with something like TMNT, for instance, no issues at all. So certainly the Logitech G Cloud is just as good as the ROG Ally for outdoor gaming. Unfortunately, that panel does top off at 60Hz refresh though, not 120Hz like Asus's handheld console. So you can't really take full advantage of that 120Hz Xbox gaming. And the Logitech G Cloud sports a stereo speaker setup, but these are bottom facing, just like a lot of rivals, so the audio isn't blasted right at your face. And while they're not quite as beefy as the ROG Ally speakers, for instance, they're certainly more than loud enough to annoy the piss out of everyone else on your bus if you can't be bothered to wear headphones. I had no issues hearing what was going on and enjoying the background music and everything, even in quite a noisy environment. But yeah, it's very easy to slip in a pair of headphones if you want to, thanks to that headphone jack. You've also got Bluetooth 5.1 support as well, so you can stream wirelessly to a gaming headset, headphones, whatever you fancy. And if you want to do some online gaming with your mates, well, you technically don't have to wear a headset because you've got dual mics built into the G Cloud, either side of the screen there. Although they don't exactly do much in the way of noise cancellation or anything, I would highly recommend using a headset all the same. But the true highlight of the Logitech G Cloud, the way that it absolutely excels compared with all of the other handheld consoles, is the battery life. Because while the likes of the Steam Deck and the Yaneo 2 will give you about an hour and a half-ish of gaming on a full charge, this thing will keep on going for around 10 hours straight. And that's regardless of whether you're playing Genshin Impact or Call of Duty Mobile on Android, or whether you're streaming titles on the likes of Xbox. And that's through a combination of factors like that low-powered chipset. It's got a pretty sizable battery. You're not running the likes of Windows on this thing, and of course when you are gaming on AAA titles on Xbox, it's not actually running on the device, it's running remotely. And all that also means that the Logitech G Cloud stays nice and cool, even when you're gaming on this thing for hours. There's no heat being blasted out of any part of it, unlike the likes of the Steam Deck, the Yaneo 2. So again, it's whisper quiet and nice and cool. And anyway, that in a nutshell, my lovelies, is the Logitech G Cloud. So there's lots of things to like about it. It's more portable than quite a lot of other gaming handhelds. Fantastic battery life, stays nice and cool. Unfortunately, however, you can't just take an entire game's catalogue with you. You are highly dependent on a Wi-Fi connection to actually make use of this thing. So frankly, there's no massive advantages in having the Logitech G Cloud compared with simply slapping a really good Razer controller onto your Android smartphone. Anyway, what do you guys reckon of the Logitech G Cloud? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a really wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!